Imagine getting a check for $20,000 just to live in a quiet Italian village, and then realizing you picked the wrong place and left $50,000 on the table over the next 5 years. In 2026, a bunch of countries are literally paying people to move in. But most travelers are still throwing money at overpriced, overcrowded hotspots that don't give them anything back. If you choose wrong, you waste years in the wrong country and tens of thousands of dollars in missed incentives. Stay with me until number 1, because that's where most people make the biggest mistake, and where the biggest payout is hiding. You're watching The List Quest, the channel that ranks the world's destinations so you don't waste your time, your money, or your annual leave on places that aren't worth it. In this video, you're getting 10 countries that, in 2026, will straight up pay you to move there. We'll keep it simple. What kind of vibe you get, what type of money or incentives they offer, the rough cost of living, and who it actually works for. No sugarcoating, no "this is so beautiful" filler. Just, this is worth it, this is not. Let's start the countdown. At number 10, Spain. Spain doesn't just want tourists. It wants people to revive dying villages and small towns. Rural regions in Galicia, Asturias, and Castilla y León have programs where local councils and regions offer you things like monthly stipends, cheap rent, or business grants if you move there and actually stay. Here's the deal. If you're dreaming of Barcelona or Madrid paying you to show up, forget it. That's not happening. But if you're okay with a slower life in a stone village, you can find programs that offer a few $100s a month, tax breaks, or help starting a local business. Cost of living? You can live well on $1,200 to $1,600 a month in these areas, less if you're careful. Best months to scout it out are April to June or September to October, when it's not freezing or packed with tourists. At number 9, Portugal. Portugal has quietly become the backup plan for people priced out of Western Europe. The coast is expensive now, so don't expect Lisbon or Porto to hand you free cash. The action in 2026 is inland, smaller cities and rural areas that are being repopulated. Some local governments and EU-backed projects offer relocation bonuses, business grants, or tax breaks if you bring your job or start a business there. Think a few $1,000s in support over a year or two, plus very friendly tax treatment if you qualify. Cost of living in interior Portugal can sit around $1,000 to $1,400 a month with a decent apartment and regular meals out. Avoid peak summer. Go March to May or September. At number 8, Greece. Everyone wants the Greek islands, until they see the price tags in Santorini and Mykonos. That's tourist clown world. The real value is in less famous islands and rural areas, where some places actually pay families and remote workers to move in. There have been programs on islands like Antikythera, where new residents can receive a monthly stipend for a few years, plus land or housing assistance if they commit to living there long term. We're not talking get-rich money, but a few $100s a month plus almost free housing on a quiet island is a nice upgrade if your income is online. Cost of living? Around $1,000 to $1,500 a month, depending on how remote you go. Go May to June or September to October to avoid tourist chaos and insane heat. At number 7, Ireland. Ireland doesn't have a giant flashing "we pay you to move here" sign, but certain rural counties and towns are actively trying to attract remote workers with support packages and co-working incentives. Some local initiatives in the West and Northwest, think Donegal, Mayo, Sligo, have offered grants, subsidized co-working, and help with relocation if you bring a decent remote income. The catch? Ireland is not cheap overall. You're not living like a king on $1,000 a month here. But if you already earn well online and you stack those local grants plus potential tax benefits, you can claw back a few $1,000s in your first year. Best months? May to September, unless you enjoy horizontal rain. Quick question. Would you actually move to a tiny village or island if the money was good enough? Or do you need a city? Type village or city in the comments so I know what to prioritize in future lists. And keep watching, because number 5 is where the free money to move game starts getting seriously interesting. At number 6, Canada. Canada wants people, especially in rural and Atlantic regions. While it's not usually, here's a briefcase of cash, there are real financial benefits if you pick the right area and the right program. Provincial nominee programs and Atlantic immigration streams often come with settlement support. Think subsidized training, help with housing, sometimes relocation assistance from employers desperate for workers. You might not get a direct government check for $20,000, but you can absolutely find employers in smaller cities willing to cover moving costs, pay bonuses, or give you a strong salary with lower living costs than Toronto or Vancouver. Your win here is long-term. Stable residency, solid wages, and healthcare that won't bankrupt you. Smaller cities and towns can sit at $1,800 to $2,200 a month for a decent life, which is low by North American standards. Visit in late spring or early fall, unless you want to test your survival skills in a Canadian winter. At number 5, United States. Yes, the U.S. The same country where people pay $3,000 to live in a box in New York will also literally pay you to move to some of its smaller cities and states. In 2026, programs like Tulsa Remote in Oklahoma or other remote worker schemes in mid-sized cities and even some rural counties are offering relocation grants, typically around $5,000 to $12,000, to qualified remote workers who agree to live there for a year or more. Some throw in free co-working, networking, and housing help. The catch? You usually need a steady remote job above a certain income. This is not for backpackers. But if you're already working online, you can pocket the grant, enjoy a lower cost of living, often $1,500 to $2,000 a month for a pretty solid lifestyle, and avoid the insanity of coastal rents. If you're American and thinking of moving abroad, maybe check if your own country will pay you first. Keep watching, because the top 3 countries all combine low cost of living with actual financial incentives. Number 2 and number 1 are where you can completely reset your life for less than what you're wasting on rent right now. At number 4, New Zealand. New Zealand doesn't hand out random cash just because you like mountains and Lord of the Rings. But certain sectors and regions are desperate for workers, and that's where the money comes in. If you've got skills in healthcare, trades, agriculture, or tech, you can find employers and regional programs offering relocation bonuses, moving cost coverage, and help with visas. In some smaller towns, the overall package, wages, support, and lower rent, can be worth tens of thousands of dollars over a few years compared to living in an overpriced city elsewhere. Cost of living is not cheap, but quality of life is high. Think $2,000 to $2,500 a month for a solid lifestyle in a regional center, more in big cities. Best months to scout? November to March, when the weather actually makes sense. At number 3, Japan. Japan has a problem. Too many empty houses and not enough people in the countryside. Your opportunity is simple. Japan is quietly paying people to move into rural areas and smaller towns. Several local governments and prefectures offer relocation grants, child allowances, and business subsidies if you move from a big city to a depopulated area. On top of that, there are IKEA programs, abandoned houses you can buy for almost nothing, and sometimes get extra support to renovate. Realistic numbers? You might get the equivalent of several $1,000s in cash and subsidies over a couple of years, plus insanely cheap housing. Cost of living outside Tokyo drops hard. You can live on $1,200 to $1,600 a month in many smaller cities. The catch? Language and culture. Japan is not going to bend around you. If you're willing to adapt and learn, the long-term value is huge. Visit March to May or October to November to test it out. If one of these countries actually offered you a free house, but it was in a tiny village, would you take it? Yes or no? Drop your answer and keep going, because number 1 is where the move and get paid fantasy actually lines up with real, practical money. At number 2, Chile. Chile went big years ago with Startup Chile, paying entrepreneurs to base their companies there. That DNA is still around in 2026. If you're building a startup or bringing in tech skills, you can get serious support. Programs aimed at entrepreneurs and certain professionals can offer equity-free funding, mentoring, and visa support. We're talking up to tens of thousands of dollars in investment or grants for the right project. This isn't free money for random people, but if you have a legit business idea, Chile will treat you very well. Cost of living in Santiago is moderate by Western standards, $1,500 to $2,000 a month for a decent life. But if you base yourself in smaller cities like Valdivia or Concepcion, you can go lower while still getting a high quality of life and ridiculous natural scenery on your weekends. March to May and September to November are the sweet spots. At number 1, Italy. This is the one everyone thinks they understand, and where they mess up the most. Yes, Italy has €1 house stories and regions paying people to move in. But if you don't read the fine print, you end up broke, stuck in a renovation nightmare, and wondering why your cheap Italian dream is bleeding cash. Here's how to do it right in 2026. Regions like Molise, Calabria, and parts of Sardinia have offered grants, sometimes up to around $20,000 over a few years if you move to a small town, become a resident, and either start a business or commit to living there long term. Some schemes combine a small monthly salary with housing incentives. Your job is to not fall for the fantasy of a ruined mansion for €1 that actually needs $150,000 of work. Instead, look for towns that offer both, actual grants or stipends, plus reasonably livable homes that don't need to be rebuilt from scratch. Cost of living in these areas? You can easily live on $1,000 to $1,500 a month if you're not trying to cosplay as a millionaire. Best months to visit and scout are April to June and September to October. If you do this properly, Italy is where you can literally get paid to create your own low-cost, high-quality version of the under the Tuscan sun life without lighting your savings on fire. So, out of these 10, which country would you actually move to if they handed you a check and said, "Welcome home"? And which one shocked you the most by even being on this list? Tell me in the comments. I read them to decide what to rank next. If you like the idea of countries paying you to show up, you're going to love this next video. Stop going to the Maldives, 10 remote islands that are actually affordable. It's all about skipping the overhyped, overpriced resorts and finding island paradises that don't bankrupt you. Click that, hit subscribe if you want more brutally honest travel lists, and I'll see you in the next one.